don't think I've ever seen bosses take so much damage this fast in all my time playing Destiny. Even though the bosses were somewhat weaker, we killed Consecrated Mind in 1 second, Templar almost instantly dies as well, and even though War Priest is super tanky, Golden Gun was still able to hit him for 1 million damage in a single shot. Yo, what's going on, guys? It's G Miners here, and Celestial Nighthawk got an extremely solid buff this season, and the exotic was already a top tier option. In Season of the Wish, we got another 25% buff to Golden Gun's damage when using Nighthawk, plus the ability to build supers extremely quickly just through getting precision weapon kills. Also, really quickly, we do have a Discord. Join it so we can hit 6,000 members. Thanks. To make things even better, there are also 8 artifact mods this season, which are going to make the build even stronger. We have mods to increase the scorch we apply to enemies, a mod to give us Radiant for free, a mod to generate a ton of extra orbs of power, and even a mod to make every precision final blow ignite enemies. Plus, those are just the generic mods for the build. Other mods this season are going to drastically increase our damage against bosses and are what makes it possible to hit the visual damage cap in some raids. I would say Solar Hunter also tends to lack in its overall performance in underpower content like GMs, but even in this Legend Lost sector with Infinite Radiant and Restoration, dealing with champions was pretty easy. The other major benefit to Nighthawk, as I mentioned, was the super gains. Anytime you land a final blow with Golden Gun, a third of your super is instantly returned. This offers a great uptime when dealing with champions because you're only ever needing to build 2/3 of your super, and then the buff this season makes it extremely easy to build the rest of your super with precision-based weapons like hand cannons. The other really nice thing is when going against enemies while under power or even dealing with majors and mini bosses which have a lot more health, you can easily kill things by just using ignitions. In the Legend campaign here, I am 15 power under, which is super similar to contest mode raids, and I can easily kill everything just by getting precision kills on thralls and acolytes because they ignite and then deal a ton of damage to everything else nearby. The build honestly surprised me with how strong it is. I figured it would really still only be a good exotic to run for damage phases in certain raids and dungeons, and that's it. But the build overall offers a lot this season. I'm going to be covering all the mods, the aspects, and the fragments needed. But before I do, make sure to drop a quick like and sub down below. It's completely free and it helps me out a ton. Okay, hopping straight into the build, obviously what you're going to want is a solar hand cannon to synergize with solar, and then obviously, as you'll see, a lot of our artifact mods, which I'm going over in a second. Sunshot is great. Sometimes, because it's so good, it can kill too many ads and you're not really optimizing your super gains. Also, it's exotic, so if you're running something like Tractor Cannon for the 30% debuff, you might want something like Apocalypse Integration. This is my personal favorite solar to run. Otherwise, some people like Zali's Bane, but either which way, you have some good legendary and exotic options. And then obviously that synergizes with Celestial Nighthawk, which is the centerpiece for this build. Within the artifact, these are the mods I recommend having on. The first 4 are for quality of life. Kindling Trigger is good just for helping with ignitions and applying score stacks to enemies. Flint Striker is great for your radiant uptime as you're using solar weapons and getting final blows. Wished into Being is great for spawning in orbs of power. You're typically sitting with your Golden Gun fully charged, ready to go into like a boss fight or a damage phase. So for that reason, you can spawn in a ton of orbs of power in the meantime. And then lastly, Raise of Precision is great because again, with Celestial Nighthawk, as you're building super, you're aiming for those precision final blows. And so when that enemy dies, they're also going to ignite and kill a lot of things around you. It can have some negatives because you're killing a lot of things and not optimizing your super regen. But overall, I think it helps. It feels amazing for the build. So I do recommend running it. And then when it comes to damage from whence you came, at least for Taken and Scorn bosses, is a 5% increase. Heart of Flame is a massive increase. Anytime that you pop your super near a bunch of allies, you're getting an increase per each ally. It also procs Radiant, so as soon as you pop Goldie, you already have Radiant procced, so you don't need to worry about throwing your knives after that point or before that. Revitalizing Blast is great because you can use this for another 15% if you're playing solo to weaken something. You could also just run like Tractor Cannon and then use Revitalizing Blast in like a team-based setting, which we did to extend that 30% debuff. And then lastly, if you're playing solo operative is another 15% damage increase across the board to everything you're dealing damage to. Within the solar subclass for your main abilities, obviously make sure you're on Golden Gun Marksman. This offers the precision damage increase. You do want this one. It's the bottom center one, so make sure you have this on. I feel like people can get confused between these two. This left one is 6 shot. This is 3 shot, so make sure you have this one on. From there, I tend to stay on Gambler's Dodge. If you're in an actual DPS rotation, Marksman Dodge will be better if you're pairing this with like rockets or something like that. Knife Trick is always my go-to just for ease of use, unless I'm using a specific exotic. And then Healing Nade is great for this build because we are going to be infinitely chaining Radiant and Restoration. For our aspects, knock him down within our super just gives the marksman golden gun increased duration. It's kind of nice, but usually you're just insta popping, so it doesn't make a huge difference. The nice part about this is whenever we're radiant, melee final blows with our charged melee is going to instantly refund that charged melee if we get that kill while radiant, and we're almost always radiant with the build, so we're always getting our knife straight back. On your mark is also great, especially with this build, because as we're getting precision final blows, we get stacks of on your mark. So we get bonus reload, we get bonus handling, and if we dodge, we just get max stacks as well. Plus this offers 3 fragment slots, so it makes for a perfect build. With our 5 fragment slots, first up is going to be Ember of Singeing. As we apply Scorch to enemies, it doesn't matter how much, even if it's 1 stack, we are getting 300% additional base regen for a class ability for 3 seconds. It makes a huge difference. In like just 2 knife uses, we can get our full class ability back. We do need Ember of Torches so that when we get a melee final blow, it procs Radiant or even a melee hit, which means that as we're using Knife Trick and knock him down, we are always getting our knife straight back. Ember of Empyrean is great because as we're getting solar weapon and ability final blows, restoration from our grenade and radiant from our knife or our seasonal artifact mods are going to be infinitely extended. And then the last 2 mods you can change out if you want, but I have Eruption to increase my ignition AoE size, and then also Wonder so that I'm getting lots of orbs of power as I'm getting those ignition final blows, just to make the build a little bit better. But depending on your situation, if you find that Eruption and Wonder are just killing too many adds with every ignition that you're proccing, and you're not able to get enough precision final blows to build super in between damage phases, you could easily swap these out if need be. Last up for the build, these are all the mods that I'm using. You guys can screenshot. We'll always have a Mobalytics link down below if you want to check it out in further detail, or a dim link if you want to click once and apply this to yourself in game. Once again, our exotic of choice is Celestial Nighthawk. Absolutely make sure you're running this. This got a 25% damage increase this season. On top of that, if you manage to get a final blow with your golden gun shot, that gives up to, I think, like a third of your super straight back. And then as you get precision final blows, it offers like 2.5% all the way up to 5% energy for your super back per precision final blow that you get, depending on the tier of enemy that you kill. So obviously this is great for building supers very quickly. For that reason, I also have hands-on to build super through melee kills. We're typically running a solar weapon, so I'm running Harmonic Siphon for even more orb generation. And then because we tend to proc this in a group setting, I'm using Radiant Light so that I can give my teammates some armor charge stacks as I pop in case they have low amounts of stacks or something like that. On my gauntlets for even more orbs, because we have infinite melee charges, heavy-handed is a no-brainer. I also have impact induction, so as I'm dealing melee damage with my knives, I'm getting grenade energy straight back. And then obviously it revolves heavily around using a solar weapon, typically a primary, as I showed with the hand cannon, so Harmonic Loader is also really great for the build. On my chest, I just have 3 copies of damage resistance mods. I tend not to change this. It's good practice, especially for end game content. A lot of people don't realize this works, but you can still run 2 copies of Kinetic Weapon Surge to increase your Golden Gun's damage by 17%. I know that Golden Gun is a solar ability. It works with kinetic surges for whatever reason, and it only works with 2 copies. It used to work with 3 copies. A lot of people were aware of that, and then Bungie said they nerfed it, and then testing was done, and it was found out that it still works with 2 copies. So this is another 17% increase in your Golden Gun's damage. So absolutely make sure you have this on at least when you're dealing damage. And then after that, I like running Recuperation for the added healing. And then finally, because we're using surges on my class item, I have time dilation. I use my dodge so that I can collect orbs of power nearby to build my super quickly and also collect armor charges for a damage phase if I need it. And then I do still have 1 copy of bomber, because really the only ability we need to build up fast is our healing grenade, because that has the worst uptime with this build. That is everything for the video and the build, guys. Let me know which exotic you've enjoyed the rework for the most this season, and I do also stream a bunch over on my Twitch. And I will also be streaming our very first clear of Warlord's Ruin tomorrow at Resets. A link to that and everything else is down in the description below. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.